I think the second verse is good when the drums come in. I think the bass front of it perhaps could be. You know when you play the little thing that was done on the guitar, the Evo guitar before? I know you do the whole chorus actually.
Peter, got any double A's?
Okay, let's talk about A New Morning. Can you tell me the story of this album? Why was there such a long gap between Head Music and this album?
Why was there a long gap? Because, yeah, lack of focus. Always be suspicious of bands that take a long time to make records, because it doesn't mean that they're making a better record. It just means that they're messing around. And kind of like, you know, they've got too much time and too big a budget on their hands. And that's exactly what happened with A New Morning. We kind of like, you know, we had too much time to overthink it, I think. And I was listening, when we were remastering some of the tracks, some of the demos, the reissues, I was listening to some of them, and, you know, some of the early demos, the very first demo session we did. They're really beautiful, and they're kind of how they should have sounded, and I kind of regret that the album doesn't sound like that. There's a kind of a lightness and a kind of, I don't know, spontaneity to them, which we didn't quite capture when we finally re-recorded the album, because we were just kind of bored of the songs. I think by that point we'd already done it once with Tony Hoffa.
We've been around the houses with them.
Yeah,
seriously around the houses.
You recorded it originally with Tony Hoffa, I believe.
Yeah.
Where did he come from? How did you choose?
Tony had done some stuff with Beck, and, you know, it was part of this whole process of wanting to reinvent Suede, wanting to take it somewhere else, wanting to sort of use people that you wouldn't traditionally kind of associate with Suede, and I really liked the album Midnight Vultures, and Tony worked on that, and Tony was a fan of the band, and we just thought, well, let's give it a shot, you know, let's see where it goes, sort of thing. And we did a version of the album.
Was it the same songs?
Pretty much the same songs at Rockfield in Wales.
Yeah.
And, you know, we spent a couple of weeks there. And
we spent a long time there. We did a couple of weeks in Rockfield. That's right, in February. And that was the last recording session we did with Neil. And shortly after that, I think you left.
Yeah.
And then we sort of got Alex in pretty much the next day, I think. And because we've been sort of writing with him, and we toured with him on, you know, Douglas Park, no, Heavy. And so he was an obvious choice to kind of get in and help us scrape the album together, sort of thing. But we decided that we were going to do a proper session with Tony. We went back to Parkgate, which we'd been in May 2000. We'd done the demo session there, which was great. So we thought, let's go to Parkgate again. And we spent like 2 or 3 months there in summer 2001, a long time. Just working on the tracks, trying to use Tony's kind of electronic and West Coast influence to make them sound different and more exciting and modern. And I don't know why it fell so short of the mark.
I was going to say, why didn't you like the results? I mean, were you all in agreement that you didn't like the results, or?
Eventually, yeah. You have to kind of take a step back sometimes if you're involved, especially if it's a long album process. You can kind of get. It's so close to you all the time that you can't see it properly. And then afterwards, after we finished the session, we thought, is there anything salvageable here? And we eventually agreed, no, there isn't. We have to start it afresh, write some new songs towards Christmas 2001, and start in 2002 with Stephen Street.
And what about John Leckie's involvement? Because he's credited with producing Positivity.
Yeah, we did a session with John where and he produced, pretty much produced Positivity, didn't he?
Yeah. We did the strings there with John Leckie and Rack. Yeah. That was the day, we started recording on the day of the World Trade Center attack.
We did, yeah. September 11th. I remember sitting in the control room, in the lounge with Chrissy Hind. And the tower's kind of crumbling, and her saying, "What about the animals?"
Yeah.
So, Neil, you were only involved with the very first version of the album then?
Yeah, I'd left before we did a couple of sets of demos, and I'd left before the band had gone into the studio with Tony Hoffa. I'd left just after the first couple of weeks that we had with Tony Hoffa.
We'd just written Positivity. I mean, we should have known really, because we wrote Positivity and then Neil
wrote,
and then we started recording it and the World Trade Center thing happened. We should have realised it was
It's cursed. I think with Tony's, you asked why it didn't go right. Again, we were sort of overthinking it too much. We'd basically written a load of songs that were basically kind of folk songs. Things like Oceans and Lonely Girls and Cheap and stuff like that. And then we were sort of trying to sort of shoehorn this sort of like a sort of beats electronica thing onto it, and it was just a sort of a mismatch of styles that didn't really go together, and it just didn't work.
Well, was it odd then to keep recording the same songs, because by the time you recorded the last version, so to speak, you were still recording Neil's songs?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it wasn't just those songs. We'd sort of written some as well. We'd written things like Sessions and what else? Morning,
Astro Girls,
Street
I was
Life.
going to ask, did Alex arrive with the demos for Street Life and Astro Girls and Astro Girl?
He kind of, I think he had been, he's because we wanted to write with him as soon as he joined the band, which was like March 2001. We got right.
Well, actually, we had written started writing with him even before he joined the band.
Beautiful Loser.
Yeah, because I asked, I just sort of said, well, it was part of this time. It's just sort of trying to, sometimes with writing, you've just got to take whatever the universe offers you. You need to just sort of grab it if it's there. And I at that point, I feel that I needed some sort of extra inspiration. Alex had been touring with us, some of the second half of the Head Music tour, because Neil was ill, and obviously I developed a rapport with Alex, and I started talking about writing, and we exchanged a few ideas, and he sent me the demo of the music to what became Beautiful Loser, and I wrote to that because I liked it. And so there was a sort of a writing dialogue going on with Alex before he actually joined the band. Yeah.
Well, the general tone of the album, to me at least, is far lighter. It's not as somber feelings as any of the preceding four. Was that your doing, or did Stephen Street bring some of that as well?
No, I think that was definitely our doing. If you listen to the demos from that period, which is just the band unproduced, as it were, they're even lighter. And I wanted a very sort of like light, sort of bucolic almost feel to the record. I didn't want it to be sort of paranoid and urban. I wanted it to be, sort of like almost pastoral in a way, quite sort of like acoustic, quite sort of beautiful, but sort of not tragic and not too romantic, quite light in places.
Does that inform a sort of a bit of a Beatles influence you can hear on it?
Yeah, Beatles and that,
in the backing vocals
exactly. There's a sort of Beach Boys sort of feel to some of those BVs, Lost in TV and stuff like that.
That was a new element we wanted to work. We did lots of writing for A New Morning actually in this room. I remember the three of us sitting around working on complicated backing vocal parts, which is a new thing for Suede, evolving the writing.
But we were very conscious of where is this going to go? How are we going to take this to the next level? How are we going to evolve musically? That was that's always been a thing with Suede. We the last thing we've ever wanted to do is make a record that sounds like the previous one.
And were you getting worried that the album was taking too long?
Yeah, I mean, there was a point where it was what's going on here? Yeah, absolutely.
And do you think that informed the fact that why Positivity as an opening single wasn't that well received by the fans?
No, I think Positivity wasn't well received by the fans because of the title of the song, almost predominantly. More than anything. Okay, it's not. The music doesn't sound like Animal Nitro, whatever, but straight away it's kind of it's saying something that I don't think Suede fans really wanted to hear. The message is a sort of non-Suede message.
And do you think that's, ultimately the album didn't sell as well as its predecessors? Do you think that was part of the same thing? Yeah, I mean, we definitely had this sort of almost sort of strange, twisted desire to kind of like alienate our fan base. And do you think they've moved on in the interim?
I mean, we wanted to alienate them, and we made a record that they didn't particularly. We made a record that they didn't particularly like, so they didn't buy it. You know, it's as simple as that. But I mean, the fact is, it's not as good a record as the other Suede albums, as far as I'm concerned. But that doesn't mean I'm disowning the music. It just means that I'm disowning our choices that we made at the time. If you look at things like Simon, Cheap, Oceans, if they'd have been on the record properly instead of, I don't know, whatever ended up on the record, but within that recording process there were some great songs, and again it's more of a regret of the decisions we made at the time rather than the songs that we were recording.
Why did you make Oceans a hidden track when you were so keen on it?
I don't know. I mean, it's just stupid, isn't it? And I love that song, and I even loved it at the time, but it's just, I don't know why. We sort of got into this sort of like mindset of kind of like what we wanted the record to be, and Oceans didn't quite fit in with that, but we knew it was a good song, so we just thought, well, let's chuck it as an extra track.
Do you think a lot of people actually missed it?
Probably. It was another stupid thing. I don't know why. I don't really know why we did it. It wasn't a very clever thing to do.
What would you do differently now with this album? Do you think? Would you make it more in the style of Obsessions than?
Difficult to say. I mean, like I said, I'd include certain songs and exclude others. I mean, the plan was to make a kind of a light, acoustic, bucolic record, and there are moments that kind of are successful, that achieve that quite nicely. So what would I do differently? Yeah, include some songs that weren't included, I suppose.
Some of the B-sides.
Yeah. But what would you do differently? Like, you could go to the further extreme and say, we'll make a completely different record. Do you know what I mean? But
you'd already done that twice anyway.
Yeah, exactly. What would I do to that record that exists and that collection of songs? Well, just some different decisions made in, when it comes to B-sides and album tracks. That's what I do differently. But the actual recording, I think that lots of the recordings are beautiful. Proud of them. Lost in TV. I love the recording of that. I think it's wonderful.
That was one of Matt's few writing credits. How did that come
about?
That was actually a demo that because back in sort of '95 when we started writing Coming Up, I was the only one who had anything other than like a 4-track. I had an 8-track, and so Matt would come over. Yeah, exactly. Double the fun. And Matt would come over to mine and record. He did like 2 or 3 bits of music, because Europe is our playground. He came over to mine and recorded this piece called Anything, which was in probably about September '95, and then in about June 2000, Brett said, I've written something to it, so it's the best part of 5 years, and it got kind of chopped about quite a lot, but that became Lost in TV, and for me it's one of the best tracks on the record.
There's plenty of that one too, as well.
Yeah.
The last that you had on that topic kind of suspended it at the very end. What was the last? Can you remember? That was it. That was it. No, we actually I played.